Hey, people. I just got back from soccer, so I just thought I'd do a quick video. Okay, so Persona 5. It's just a great game. So good from a message. So the gameplay is good. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. The story is just, the story and gameplay is just so fantastic. Um, so let me describe it, and this is gonna have spoilers, but I'll let you know when the spoilers start. Basically, you're a Japanese high school student and you try to stop a woman from getting assaulted. And so you end up being framed and accused of assaulting the guy that was assaulting the woman. And the guy's very powerful, so he gets the woman to testify against you. It's all very sad. So, long story short, you're on probation. You have to move into Tokyo into this random guy's coffee shop. So then you're there. You start going to school. And you start the game is basically two parts. One, you go around the streets of Tokyo, building relationships with different side characters, run about them, and meanwhile you go through different story arcs to, hey, talk to this character, talk to that character, figure out what's going on, find this information, so on and so forth. And in that part of the game, it's just cool you're going around Tokyo. The second part of the game, you're going through dungeons, which are basically bad people's minds. You're going into the mines to steal their heart or steal their treasure, which basically means their corruption. The powers inside their minds is the manifestation of their corruption. And of course, they have the seven deadly sins as the themes, plus one extra one I talked about later. And you basically go through the seven deadly sins representing these seven different characters. And you basically learn about them in the real world, go in their minds, beat their monster or whatever, and then change them back so that they repent of their sins, basically, to put a Christian take on it. Then the third part is, of course, you fix smaller people who don't have quite as much wrong with them, who have gone corrupt. And you basically learn about them through your travels in Tokyo, and you battle them in this metaverse, which is this collective unconsciousness of Tokyo, pretty much. So right, that's the basics of the game. Go around Tokyo, go inside people's minds, explore the metaverse. So that by itself is kind of gives you a little glimpse of how interesting this game is. So should I go into spoilers now? No, not yet. So first off, I got interested in this game because several YouTubers I follow are very big fans of the game. And I can tell that because they made their cartoon avatars look like the main character. So Lord Nux and Nor, the degenerate one, and Afro Zero, both really good podcasters. Afro Zero is very small. He's basically it's the DDLC fan base. So DDLC is a game that's very, very dark, very, very sad, and people experiencing trauma from the game decided to deal with it by making a bunch of goofy mods off of the main characters, which, if you play DDLC, is hilarious. And two, Nux is just a troll, kind of. He started out talking about anime and video games and stuff, and he's kind of expanded to be more of a general podcaster guy. Interesting guy. He's actually kind of gone. I'm pretty sure he's conservative. He's like a conservative Jewish guy, which is great. I'm pretty sure he might be Orthodox. I'm not positive, but He gives enough hints. He's great. Anyway, they both have the main character personified as their main guy, so that's pretty cool. So I started putting something. Oh, I gotta check it out. It's supposed to have a really good art style, and it does, really unique. It's the kind of unique that is beautiful, but still realistic. Like you don't feel like it feels like a stylized version of reality, which the music is too. Just fantastic. And it's pretty, and it's Tokyo, so you explore these different shops and spots, and it's based on the actual city. It's not quite the actual city, but it's pretty close. It's the love letter to Tokyo, and if you've been to Tokyo, you can kind of appreciate that. So let me go through what makes this game interesting. First, with the non-spoilers ones. First of all, if I was teaching a young, like, I don't know, 14 to 25-year-old how you should live life, you can do a lot worse in Persona 5 because one, relationships, you have to actually make an effort for the side characters and actually talk to them and try to understand them, and they say the right things without always saying the right things to make them comfortable, move through their problems. But most importantly, you're just like developing things. It doesn't have to, especially for like intergender stuff, it doesn't have to go anywhere. It just has to go to, you're trying to increase your confidence score. So if you're trying to understand how you can meet people and how to get to know people, that's a pretty good framework. Just how you can increase how much you know somebody without wanting anything in return except for more knowledge of that person. Two, there's so that's one thing. Two, an awful lot of the game, not awful lot, but like a lot of the game is deciding what to do in the 2 time spots that they give you for each day that you're not in a dungeon. So you have to spend a decent amount of time strategizing how to spend your time. For example, you can work out in the game, and that gives you 5 HP. So it's helpful, and it's something you do, and it's something he does hopes or whatever, and it just shows, hey, exercise is part of life. Two, there's stuff like doing laundry. You get dirty armor and dirty clothes from the dungeon. You bring it out, you sell it. And three, oftentimes you read books and you watch movies, and that actually gives you points. So there are 5 character points you can build up. So there's intelligence, there's guts, charm. There's 2 other ones. There's guts, charm, intelligence. Let me look that up real quick. Proficiency in so it's knowledge, guts, proficiency, kindness, and charm. So proficiency and kindness are the 2 I missed. So basically build up these, and I'm like, I think that, again, I didn't remember them, but I think that's a pretty good metric because like if you go to anything like, I'm not bashing them, but like don't kill, don't commit adultery, all the don'ts, it doesn't really like give you anything to work towards. It's like, oh, avoid things, and then if you're avoiding something, you're going to do it, kind of, which is weird, but it's kind of how people work. So it's good to have traits you can develop over time that you can kind of grade yourself on. So you get these partly by going and talking to people, getting to know them, but also by watching movies, reading books. And that's kind of how real life works, where like if you do things the right way, you can use entertainment options to become a better person and learn about what it means to be a good person and such. And it's a really good way of measuring yourself. Plus, the other thing you can do is like you make tools. So you can be sitting in your room making tools. It's something people actually do in the real world. Is they make tools and they fix things, and that's kind of cool. Like I don't know if you've been to an anime convention, but you see these people who are picking rocks and stuff, or have these costumes, and there's all these like finicky things people do that are very detail oriented, and it's just so cool. And they get really good at it. Or knowledge of guts, and so yeah, there's it's interesting way of doing it. Finally, the different characters all have a code card, a tenant card, a totem card. Thank you. Where they have 16, basically 16 personality types. You got the hermit, you got the chariot, which is the best friend type. You got the lovers, you got the sycophant, and all these different 16 characters. Which, I mean, I don't think they're real things, but I do think it's a reasonable way of describing people and understanding. Okay, how does this person see the world? Like my best friend Faith, she's like a hermit type, and I'm like, okay, I kind of that's like a type. It's not somebody who's nobody's that strange. Everybody just fits into something, you know. Then you can be like, okay, now how are they different or similar to that type or whatever? So that's all really cool. So you go around, you develop your social chat, you develop your social stats, you meet people, you develop friends, you develop um, people's character traits, and usually it's they're going from the shadow side of their type to the good side of their type. Like the lover's confidant, and you kind of take her from being kind of everything happens to her to somebody who's like a strong, independent, like she's a model when she's trying to go through that. And there's similar journeys for all of them where they go from the negative side where you're just kind of passive to somebody who's like taking control of their own destiny sort of thing, and the way of the different tone cards. That's all really cool. Spoiler territory. Several things. So like I've started noticing people talk about the collective consciousness. Like right now in the United States, it's kind of like anxious, don't really know what's going to happen, all that kind of stuff about politics and everything else. I'm not going to go into that here, but it's like there's a collective feeling in the air. And I started hearing people, and I'm like, oh, Persona 5, let's talk about that 10 years ago, which is really, really cool. They were really on top of it. And because our consciousnesses are not independent, we kind of live in a sea of consciousnesses, especially with the internet. It doesn't become less. Like on one hand, we're more atomized than ever. On the other hand, we're all linked together in ways that we really weren't before, which is kind of weird. So it was cool that they got kind of ahead of that. Two, it talks about sin, like character things like gluttony, lust, pride, envy, all those, in a way that isn't super religious, but still gets the point across quite well. Like these aren't good things, and not made out to be good things. But at the same time, it talks about, especially late in the game. So in the first 4 or 5, you basically go inside someone's mind. You're like, oh, they're doing this bad thing and taking advantage of kids. A lot of it's like about how adults take advantage of kids. At school as teachers or as artists, and or as gangsters. And what's funny is that a lot of these characters are actually like kind of adults that we were taught to just obey and respect automatically. Like teachers, oh, teachers are great people. It's like, well, not this one. It's like there's also a good teacher character, mind you. Or, oh yeah, artists are always great people. And it's like, no, there's a lot of scumminess in the art world. Or, oh, the politician, no, this guy's great, he understands people. It's like, no, he doesn't. He's trying to use people. Or this gangsters are cool. It's like, no, this guy's just a sniveling little punk, basically. And so on and so forth. Or you also have people, one palace where Futaba basically is stuck inside of her own mind. So she's got the wrath one. She's a good person, but she's just angry at herself for the death of her mom. Again, also, dark things happen. Like, it's heavily implied that Anne's best friend at the beginning of the game gets raped by the teacher, and she tries to kill herself. That's like heavily implied. It's definitely like some kind of assault, and it's like, it's probably that. Or the fact that the art guy character's master basically use him to as a way to get free art, and the art hero makes Madarame makes himself look good, but like he's actually just using other people, so on and so forth. Where like bad things actually happen. For Taba, it's like her mom is like in the magic of the game murdered, but she thinks that she caused her mom to kill herself. Again, dark shit, right? It's fucking dark, but it's something that like you can learn and be like, oh, so it got impact. It's not just like, oh, things great. It's like, no, things are crap sometimes. And again, like they have one of the confidants basically was coerced into being a like maid in one of his costumes. So that's just like so interesting how they go into the different like the stuff that's actually dark. These are actually bad people, and they're supposed to be, oh yeah, respect authority, respect authority figures. Like, no, you don't. You take them as they come. Some of them good, some of them bad, some of them. Instead of like the modern, oh, always respect the people in charge. They know everything. They know better than you. It's like, no, we see what they do. So there's two things that they basically updated in the Persona 5 Royal game that I play. There's Akechi, I love Akechi, and Mabuki. So again, spoilers. Which one to talk about first? I think Mabuki's interesting. Mabuki's basically the school counselor. He came in to be the school counselor at the same time you got there, and he basically helps you and your friends kind of get through different issues that you're going through, and that's good, right? Except at the end of the game, if you leveled up the correct confidence enough, he is trying to just fix everybody. It's like, oh, everybody gets what they want. Everybody gets to be happy. Happy. And it's why through this metaverse power that he's connected to. It's like, well, is that what you want? Do you want everything just to be fixed with a magic wand? And that's like kind of when like I feel like psychotherapy has gone in that direction where it's like, oh, just pop a pill, pop this pill, you should be happy. It's like, no, that's not what being human is about. You gotta have like goals and failings and pain and suffering. It's like that's part of how it works. It's not supposed to just be happy. And that's where like yeah, it's not supposed to be easy. It's like but that is technically, if you go along with him, it is technically a good ending. But you know it's not, right? You're like, well, that's not how it's supposed to be. So yeah, that's just interesting, especially because like the idea of a psychologist. Oh, psychology is bad. It's like, well, can be. Nothing is a queen. Nothing is a free lunch. And it's just like interesting about the psychology people. People are starting to ask the questions like, can therapy be bad? Can these things that we say do this be open? It's like, well, I mean that can be good. It can be bad. It depends, and it's like kind of complicated. And he's not one of the seven deadly sins. He has sorrow because he lost somebody, and he wanted to take away her pain. He does, but then you kind of think to yourself, well, he could have saved that. Second character, this character wasn't the original, but he got a expansion pack. Akechi's great. And all the other characters are kind of like, hey, T-Power Friends, we just like manifest. I'm gonna kick your ass. It's like, okay, you're from a different game, dude. Welcome. But he's basically a sociopath. Well, is he though? Yeah, he is. So he's very psychotic. That psychosis is one of his powers. What's funny is that he's very much a mirror image of the main character. And when you go through the game and you answer these like, hey, you you have all these conversation choices with these different minor characters you talk to. You choose the character, what do you say based on who you're talking to get the most points, which is kind of sociopathic, right? Making choices based on like, oh, how can I get points out of this person? But like, it's kind of like a positive way, a positive sociopathy, kind of. And meanwhile, Akechi is like the mirror image, where he's like sociopathic, not to increase his connections with other people, but to get the most of what he wants. But he's not quite evil. He's not quite evil. He has goals, right? And ultimately, he's the one who wakes you up and says, hey, everything looks like it's perfect, everything can be fixed, and saying, well, no, I want to choose my destiny. And I kind of find that really, really appealing. And I feel like a lot of my favorite characters are sociopaths. Like, honestly, like sociopaths are main characters. They own their stories. Like, what do you say? Oh, they murder people. It's like, no, people murder emotional people with no emotions murder people too. Murders, everybody murders. I bet if you actually look at the percentages, the emotional people probably murder more people than the sociopaths. But the issue is the sociopaths lose control. That's the issue. So I guess she's a psychopath most of the story, and then becomes a sociopath. He kind of loses control a little bit. So one thing he says, I've done all this stuff. I've become the ace inspector, the kid detective. I've always done fantastic. Solved all these crimes. I've done all these schemes. I wanted just somebody to want to have me around, And I'm like, I just wanted somebody to want me around. It's like, oh my God, that hits hard. It's like somebody just wants somebody to have you around. It's like, hello, I understand that. And still understand that even as I get older in middle age, and I'm kind of like getting a little bit older, and I'm like, yeah, can somebody just like want me around? That'd be nice. Instead of just always having to do things, and then you have to pressure yourself, and then you pressure yourself to do better, to earn approval, but it never works, and that's the whole cycle of pain. I mean, Akechi gets it. Oh, and the final character in that time, but Sumire, she gets basically, she's like, oh, I wish I was my sister, because her sister dies tragically, basically saving her life because she was doing something stupid. Right. Anyway, that whole thing. And Dr. Movie's like, oh, I can fix that for you. So he just lets her change her identity to her sister so that she can imagine that she was the one who died, not her sister. And the doctor basically made that part of her mind with his power. And it's kind of like, and Akechi's like, no, that is bad. So he does have an ethical code. That's the thing. He's not evil. He just has a twisted ethical code that's actually sensible. But I wanted the game, so that's really, really good story. It's interesting to have bad guys based on some deadly sins in a modern context. Adults aren't always bad, aren't always good. Changing people from negative to positive by having, so that's the other thing. The game is a lot about what is the proper attitude towards your desires. So obviously the 7 deadly sins is desire that's too much. They went out and like pursued lust or gluttony or whatever. You gotta. But then at the end, like near the end of the game, you're like, you find the metaverse where everybody is actually just enslaved and doesn't have any desires at all, and they just kind of like float on by through life. And it's like, well, that's bad. That's bad in a different way, right? And then it turns out it's all like about the control, God of control, not the Christian God. I think it actually is a Christian God. So the God of control is basically evil angel, I guess. That is basically like just trying to control everybody by taking away their desires. And then at the end, it's like, well, what if you get your desires, but you don't get them the right way? It's like interesting how it just examines how people's desires are, what is the proper relationship to your desires? You want things, but you have to want them in the right way. So very Eastern, I guess, Eastern philosophy about that. And it does that a lot with sex, which is interesting. So nothing ever happens. In percent games, people have sex. It's not you. Very true. I mean, all these characters and they all talk to each other. So it's like the costumes that people have when they go into the metaverse are kind of more sexy, I guess, stylish, whatever. but it's not done as a like exploitative way. It's just kind of done as a this is an expression of their innermost self, which is sexual. We are sexual beings, which I mean most people know that. I had a lot of trouble embracing that in myself. So that's just interesting, right? It's like the correct attitude towards sex because the Christians would be like, "Oh, just put it all away." It's like, "Well, that doesn't really work." Or they say, especially as you're going into that stuff. Or it's like the secular is like, "Oh, just have sex." It's like, well, no. It's like there's an attitude to have it where it's like sexual, but not like the actual deed. From I don't know, it's a thing, right? What else is there? Also, what's the shadow? Like embrace. So you go through the game and you go through these dungeons, you capture masks and stuff. And when you go through masks, you basically like take these different demons and basically turn them into expressions of yourself. So it's like the darkness is not something that can be it has to be just done away with. We use our darkness to protect ourselves and embrace who we truly are. We use the demon, not the other way around. So it's pretty cool. Not just, oh, we're all good people. It's like, no, there's darkness inside of us that is a weapon against the enemy. So yeah, really a good game. Also well paced and everything, like well timed, and you do get a post game depression because you feel like you're making all these friends. You're not really. That's one dark side of the game is that you do feel like you're making social connections even though you're not, which is probably cool. But yeah, be careful at the end. Turn-based combat is great. It's basically a Pokemon based turn-based approach. You try to target your enemies' weak spots and all that kind of stuff. It's really like the actual gameplay is really good too. Dungeons are great. Interesting puzzles that you have to kind of figure out, but not impossible, like the right difficulty level. Pretty normal. They don't need the hard difficulty. One weakness about the game is that it is. I would heavily recommend you actually do some research before actually playing the game because different social stats are necessary to unlock certain characters. You need to certain characters get up to a certain level in order to get to the third act of the game, which is the Mookie actually catchy stuff part. So you have to like level up Sumeri, Akechi, and Mabuki in order to get to there. And so you don't know that. There's nothing like tells you to do these things. You know, like you can kind of tell about that they're important characters, but you don't really know. Also, social stats. Like I'm probably going to replay the game in the next 3 months or so, and I'm definitely going to do it. So I got one because these side character stories. There's like 16 of them. They're so good. I mean, like you want to go through all of them, but you just don't. If you don't do it right, you won't have the time to do it. And people are like, oh, you got plenty of time. Well, at least you know this stuff. But by the time you know this stuff, it's already July or August in the game, and you have like you're like halfway in, and the entire game takes place over 9 month, over a 9 month period. So you have like, and then a lot of the days are taken up by planning for dungeons and story arcs. So you only have like it's probably like 100 or so, well, probably more than that, probably like 140 or so days that you can work with. That's like 280 time spots, and a lot of and maybe 140. You know, you do run out, and so I wish the game was like, hey, these are the things you got to do. But then you wouldn't have all the exploration part of the game. Like, how do you explore how the game works? So 10 out of 10, great game. A lot of cool concepts. You got the Jungian darkness and yourself stuff. You got the controlling, like, what is the proper approach to desire stuff. You got the don't authority figures and the dark side. You got you got just getting to know people and all the stuff they go through. And really heartwarming characters and how you build them, how they all start out as kind of enemies or frenemies, and they slowly develop into actual friends, power of friendship, and all of that. Power of friendship does overdone a little bit. I would recommend taking a month or so break between the second trimester and the third trimester because the third trimester It's a bit of a DDLC feeling to it. Because you basically go through the whole game. You go to God of Control, and it's good. It's all paced well towards that. And then you got more stuff. And it's kind of like, okay, just take a break, as the game kind of expects you to, and then do the third trimester. You'll thank me. So yeah, play Persona 5 Royal. It's a really, really fantastic game. It's just causing cool. It's like different stuff that comes up. It's like the metaverse, the collective unconscious. It's like, oh, but that's coming up now. I hear that in different stories. Or the stuff about the like the shadow and all that stuff. And I'm kind of going on a bit, but really great game. I'm probably gonna have another video about this in a bit. But anyway, cheers.